Playing 5th edition D&D is not a simple choice these days. Now we have many options on how we want to play 5e. There's not only the new 2024 version of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons from Wizards of the Coast, but many 5e adjacent systems that you could choose from. The question is, which one is right for you? Hello everybody, I'm Joe and this is the GM Toolbox, your go-to place to get all the tools you need to enhance your TTRPG games. Today, we're going to look at 4 different versions of 5e. What are the pros and cons of each and which one may be right for you? But before we get started, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out to bring more great content like this to you. Moving on. Whether you are a seasoned D&D player or just getting into the hobby, you may have noticed that there is more than just Dungeons & Dragons to choose from when deciding what game you want to play. Now, of course, there are hundreds of amazing systems out there, but today I want to focus on systems that are built off of 5e. So how is 5e different from Dungeons & Dragons? Well, 5e is the base rule set, which is captured in the SRD, or System Reference Document, which Dungeons & Dragons is built from. These rules were written by Wizards of the Coast and are freely available for anyone to use to either play their game or, thanks to the OGL and Creative Commons licenses, to use to create content such as adventures, subclasses, and other aspects of the game that could work with the 5e system. Dungeons & Dragons is a system that utilizes those rules. D&D encompasses all the rules of the 5e SRD and then some more which are not in that document. Third-party publishers such as Koboh Press, Monty Cook, AAW Games, and many others use the SRD to make content that they can publish and sell to you. So 5e is the base rules freely available for the world to use, and Dungeons & Dragons is a game built off those rules. However, those same third parties can also make their own systems, which may be based off those rules as well, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's look at 4 of the most popular options today. First, let's start with the obvious one, Dungeons & Dragons itself. We have already seen an early release of the 2024 Player's Handbook, which I myself did a video on last week. This is an updated version of the Player's Handbook we have been using since 2014. Much of the core rules are the same, though there is some more clarity around many rules, some quality of life improvements, some overhauls to classes, subclasses, races, which are now known as species, and backgrounds, among other things. This new Player's Handbook will be available for all to purchase come September 2024, and many people are excited for it. Well, what are the pros and cons? Well, for a deep dive into that, you should see the video I already did, but basically the biggest pro is going to be the player base. Despite a lot of negative press and cons to the system itself, it is still the most popular role-playing game in the world. It has name recognition and more people play it, so you will have a much easier time finding a group. This new version has done a lot to clean up the rules and fix some aspects that we have all griped about for the past 10 years, and if I'm being completely honest, they have done a decent job on that. The cons are that many people feel that the game needed a bigger facelift than it got. We expected to see more options in character creation, but it feels like we may have gotten less. This version is also missing some of the top subclasses that we're used to from the 2014 version, and though those can still be used in this new version, some will require to make some updates to fit the new core class designs. They may also not feel as cool compared to the subclasses that did get an update. With time, we should see more subclasses get updated, but it feels like we are just repurchasing content we already had. Also, Hasbro, which owns Wizards of the Coast, hasn't had the greatest track record these past 2 years in the eyes of the public, with scandals from the OGL debacle to the Pinkertons to AI-generated art to just poor content. They haven't been doing great in the eyes of the fans. If you are someone who doesn't care about the bad press or just wants an easier time finding a group, D&D is going to be great for you. Even as someone who is leaning more towards other systems, I will likely still find myself playing in groups that run D&D. It's probably a system everyone should at least know how to play because you'll likely will end up playing it at some point. Next up is Level Up Advanced 5e from EN Publishing. This is not a new system. In fact, it came out mid-2022 and has a decent following. EN Publishing is known for making great products, and Advanced 5e is no exception. The name comes from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons of the late 70s and the 80s and the 90s, which was a revamp of the original D&D rule system, bringing the game to new heights. Advanced 5e strives to do the same by expanding on the rules of 5e. They introduce new subclasses and core classes and take existing systems in 5e and beef them up. It is a crunchier version of 5e. The pros here are that the system is very fun, and if you like the crunch, they added rules for things like gear to make it more distinct and options for almost every situation you may encounter in a game. The cons are that it is more crunch, and therefore it may be a bit slower at the table. It's kind of a trade off here. Basically, if you want more crunch to your game, this is the system for you. I have not personally played Advanced 5e, but I have looked through it extensively, and I use many rules from it on my own 5e games. It will be familiar to any 5e player and easy to pick up, but you will find that the crunch works really well for those situations where the basic 5e rules just kind of fell flat. I do really like this system, and I wish I could find a group to play it with. Next, let's talk about my current favorite system, Tales of the Valiant from Kobold Press. This was a system that spawned from the OGL debacle in early 2023. Kobold Press has been making 5e content for a decade and is heavily invested in the system. When they saw that they may lose the ability to publish using the SRD, they decided to make their own first-party system. Now, in the end, the OGL issue worked out for all of us as it was released into Creative Commons, but the Kobolds pressed forward with their plans to make their own system. They had two main goals here. First, to make a system that they can control and have its own reference document for publishers to use under a license that will be open, free, and forever. And second, to make a system that is fully backwards compatible with 5e, so that all of their books they made and we bought over the past 10 years are still useful. The product of that was Tales of the Valiant. This system is very much like the 2014 D&D, but it has a facelift. Basically, this was Kobold Press's own version of D&D 2024, and if I'm honest here, they did a better job than WotC did. Yes, they also standardized all subclasses at level 3 for all classes, just like WotC did, but they also came out with a free guide on how to convert your 5e subclasses over. Also, since WotC never put the Artificer into the SRD, they couldn't use it, so they made their own new class called the Mechanist, and it is way more fun and way better designed than the Artificer. In fact, see my video where I built a kobold based on Iron Man using the class. They also made other quality of life improvements, revamped all the classic monsters, making them more fun to run as a GM and more fun to fight as a player. They also replaced inspiration with a new system called luck, which is designed to help players fail forward. Whenever you miss with an attack or save, you get a luck point. Spend a luck point to get +1 to any d20 check, or spend 3 to re-roll a d20 check. You can see my full TOV review for more info on this system, but basically TOV is to 5e what Pathfinder was to 3.5 D&D. The pros here is that it'll be very easy for your 5e D&D players to move over to this system. The changes are easy enough that they can pick them up in one session. You also can keep using all your old 5e D&D and 5e third-party books, and you can even run 2014 D&D characters at the same table as TOV characters. But TOV characters tend to be more powerful than 5e characters, as the challenges they will tend to face match that power level. Also, the character creation is more customizable thanks to the lineage and heritage system that replaced race in TOV. The cons are that some people feel that this system is too close to D&D, so why not just play D&D? Though they should probably take a closer look before making that claim, but if you are looking for a bigger departure from 5e, you should probably not be looking at any of the systems in this video. If that's the case, I would recommend checking out DC20, Daggerheart, or MCDM, among many others. I honestly have a lot of trouble coming up with too many cons for this system, as it is rapidly becoming my preferred system to play. If you are like me and are heavily invested in 5e but don't like what you are seeing coming from Wizards of the Coast, whether it's the scandals and missteps or just the quality of the content, Tales of the Valiant is the perfect system for you. Finally, let's take a look at the new shiny everyone is talking about, Nimble 5e. This is currently in backer kit, and as of the recording of this video, has raised over $180,000. Nimble promises to be a streamlined version of 5th edition. It uses a 3-action system rather than the traditional action economy of 5e, where you can use your 3 actions to do things like attack, move, interact with objects, help an ally, take a reaction, and more. But taking the same action more than once has diminishing returns. This is similar to what we see in Pathfinder 2e, as well as the upcoming DC20. We also see big changes to how magic works using a mana pool instead of spell slots, and monsters have been streamlined as well to make running encounters easier on the GMs. Even the initiative has gotten a more streamlined overhaul. You also don't roll an attack roll, you just roll damage. If you roll 1 on your damage die, you miss. If you roll max damage, it's a crit and you get exploding dice. I see a lot of inspiration from many other systems here that I like. It seemed that the creators borrowed ideas from DC20 and the MCDM systems. that are both coming out, but tried to keep it all compatible with 5e. So far, we only have an 18-page preview document, so we don't have much, but it certainly looks interesting. The pros here are that it's going to make for fast and dynamic combat encounters, and I think it will be very easy to learn and play and run as a game master. The con is that it's not out yet. We have some time to wait before we'll see a finished product. Also, with this many changes, how compatible will it really be with 5e? I think you'll be able to run adventures with a bit of tweaking to the encounters, but player options may be harder to port in. Still, this system looks pretty cool and has a lot of promise for some fun games. If you are someone who just wants an easier time at the table with less overhead and fast combats, this is the system for you. That wraps up our look at some of the top 5e based systems that are out there for you to try. If any of these games interest you, I put links in the description below to where you can find each of them. So what do you think? Which of these, if any, do you plan to play? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. I'll see you next time.